Good morning and welcome to the weekend edition of Your Morning.
Coming up on the show, how to get your finances back on track after a busy summer.
Also ahead, how do you get along with your neighbors? We are sitting down with the stars of the new movie, Loathe Thy Neighbor.
But first, we look into why so many RCMP officers are on long-term sick leave.
There are growing concerns over the record number of RCMP officers currently on long-term sick leave. According to a report from the Management Advisory Board for the RCMP, the number of officers on long-term sick leave, look at that number, increased by 184% from 2010 to 2024. And while the MAB says the Mounties Unlimited Sick Leave pay model is at fault, the union representing officers says the report misses the mark on why officers are off the job. For more on the union's reaction, we are joined by Brian Sauvé, president of the National Police Federation. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsay.
184% in 14 years. I mean, it's a staggering increase. Why are so many officers off the job?
Well, I think one, right, police officers obviously are exposed to more trauma, more physical issues, more challenges than the ordinary everyday profession. And two, we have within the RCMP an internally resourced disability management and accommodation program that we have called out to the federal government as well as to the RCMP. It's not functioning, and it hasn't been functioning. There are two pieces to this story, right? The member of the RCMP who's responsible for a number of things when they go on sick leave to keep that salary turned on. But the employer, the RCMP, actually must have a well-resourced and well-funded and fully operating accommodations program to reach out to those members and actually get them back to work in a timely fashion. That hasn't been happening.
I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. I want to point out, when an RCMP officer is on long-term leave, they do receive 100% of their salary for as long as they're off the job. Now, this report says the model that currently exists, quote, offers no incentive to return to work. How do you respond to that?
Well, I disagree, actually. If the Management Advisory Board had done a thorough review, for example, they would have seen that within our current collective agreement, after 1 year, our members stop accumulating sick leave, or not sick leave, annual leave. So there's one incentive. There is the opportunity to be medically discharged from the RCMP. There's the second incentive. And obviously, members are in the same Canadian healthcare system that every Canadian is, and we've seen challenges with access to healthcare, especially in rural and remote areas, access to treatment, access to prognosis. What we're seeing is that the members have incentives to return, but the management has no incentives to include a proper program. Our membership definitely receive 100% salary continuance, but we also don't have a short-term disability insurance plan that members can transfer to after 30, 60, or 90 days. And the only way we can access our long-term disability insurance plan is if we actually resign or retire from the RCMP medically. So the reason that salary continuance model is there is because there's no access to other insurance plans in place for that short-term or long-term disability.
So the RCMP says that it's reviewing the MAB's recommendations. What changes are you calling for?
Well, last year, the federal budget, when we made our submission to the federal government, we actually made a submission about the disability management and accommodation program in the RCMP. We suggested that an investment, sustained investment of $20 million a year over 3 years and ongoing funding to have adequate number of nurses, adequate number of doctors, adequate number of professionals to be able to reach out to our members and provide those services effectively to get them back to work in a timely fashion. That is what we've been calling for a number of years, and we'll continue to ask for that.
Brian Sauvé, president of the National Police Federation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, the newest book by veteran journalist Lyndon McIntyre on a soldier's Canadian connection.
Why you always come around? just knowing we found something so wild. We'll be ordinary. You got me kissing the ground. We'll be sanctuary.
So this morning we're exploring the Canadian connection to a soldier you may have never heard of, despite being a heroic figure on the British battlefield, but then later leading the notorious Black and Tans in Ireland. Veteran journalist Lyndon McIntyre is putting his considerable investigative skills on display in the pages of An Accidental Villain, painting a full picture of Major General Sir Hugh Tutor, his life in England, his time in Ireland, and his exile here in Canada in Newfoundland. Lyndon McIntyre is joining us this morning, and it is such an honor to meet you.
Oh, thank you. And first of all, I'll get you out of trouble. Newfoundland wasn't part of Canada then. The Newfoundlanders are very sort of sensitive about that.
49,
it was
48?
25 to the 60s. But for a large part of it, he was.
Right.
He died in Canada.
Right, but our newest province, yeah.
Yes.
So you're this incredible Canadian. Your curiosity has led you all over the world uncovering these fascinating stories, your time with the Fifth Estate and the Journal. How did you first stumble upon Hugh Tutor and his story? Like, when did you first become aware of him?
I was researching a totally different story about some events in Newfoundland way back when, and I came across this meeting between Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt on a battleship in Placentia Bay in 1941 when Churchill is losing the war. Roosevelt and the Americans haven't got into it yet, so Churchill's got a big agenda. And in the middle of this meeting, he sends off to St. John's. He said, I'd like somebody to bring over my old pal, Hugh Tudor, to have lunch. This is in the middle of kind of a globally, historically significant moment. He wants time to have tea with his pal.
So you think, who's this guy?
Who was the pal?
Right.
And then I didn't have to dig too far, and I run into the Black and Tans in Ireland. Oh, my God. Everybody from my generation certainly has heard of the Black and Tans.
Sure.
Notorious, ruthless blood. So what was his connect? Well, he was their commander.
Right.
How did that happen? Well, he was a very famous war hero who served and who had known Winston Churchill since they were young officers in India.
Right.
And so Churchill recruited him for Ireland, and he thought the world of Churchill. He did the job for Churchill and destroyed his own life.
Yes, and as you say, he and Churchill go back to the 1890s in Ireland, but then he was this heroic figure in World War I. Can you dive into a little bit more how his role in the Irish War of Independence changed that and sullied this heroic reputation kind of to the other end of the dial?
He was a conventional British military officer, and he was very innovative. Had the rule book, all the conventions of war.
Right.
Churchill dragged him into a war that was totally unconventional in Ireland. It was an insurrection. It was a guerrilla war. It employed terrorist tactics. So he wasn't there very long before he realized the only way I can survive this, never mind win it, is to use the same tactics as the enemy. So he turned the Irish police force into basically a counterinsurgency paramilitary outfit using terrorist tactics to defeat terrorists as they saw them. And that was where he began the downward slide in history and in his personal life.
And then why did he pick Newfoundland? Like, he was in exile there, basically, so he wanted to go somewhere where he would be able to lay low?
Why did he pick Newfoundland? Because in the First World War, he was a divisional commander, and he had a battalion of Newfoundlanders under him.
Right.
And they were brilliant soldiers. One of them, a 17-year-old boy from the outports of Newfoundland, won the Victoria Cross under his command. So he had a high regard for Newfoundlanders. He knew that Newfoundland is a rock in the middle of the North Atlantic.
Right.
You might get there easy enough, but if you commit a crime there, you're not going to get off easily.
Right.
So he figured, I'll be safe there. I'll be among people who know who I am from the First World War, the Newfoundland Regiment, and I'll keep my head down and I'll keep my mouth shut, and I'll just live there for as happily and for as long as I can. And he did. 40 years.
Well, and I want to, that leads me into my final question here. Canadians know how skilled you are as an investigative journalist, but you spent 4 or 5 years tracking his history in Newfoundland, and you say, for me, tracking him through Ireland and 40 years of mostly silent exile in Newfoundland was like following a shadow. So even somebody with your skills, how do you dig up information on somebody who's intentionally
plus
stay in the
COVID
spotlight.
shut everything
COVID,
down for a
right.
couple of years of this project. But I was pursuing it because I was absolutely fixated on 2 points. One being that the big point, which is that what happens when a democratically constituted government starts to use authoritarian tactics to solve a political problem.
Right.
Never a good outcome. And what happens to an individual who is motivated by loyalty and duty, and in this case, friendship with Churchill
Right.
and trust? What happens when he throws away his principles and his rule books and he does a dirty job for a dubious project? He's destroyed for the rest of history. And like I'm saying to myself, if I'm a bureaucrat or a soldier or a policeman, I'm going to have that in the back of my mind when I follow orders to wherever those orders take me.
Yeah, and that's the lesson there.
That's the moral of the story.
The book is An Accidental Villain. It is fascinating. It is out now. Lyndon McIntyre, such an honor to meet you.
Thanks,
Thank
Teddy.
you for being
It's
here.
lovely to talk to you.
Okay, a question for you at home. Have you ever had a neighbor that you, I don't know, didn't quite get along with? Well, you might relate to this movie. Watch this.
Seriously, you're not even gonna give me your name?
You accuse me of stealing your package, and you think I'm gonna give you my name? I don't know you from a jar of germ meal. Probably report me to
Loathe Thy Neighbor is about a city boy adjusting to country life after moving to his late father's farm, where he finds himself tangled up in a ruthless feud with his new neighbor over a lost package. The film stars Lauren Holly and Brennan Clost, and they both joined me this morning ahead of the movie's theatrical release, which is happening on Friday, I believe.
Friday.
Oh, this is so exciting and great to have you both in studio. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you
You're
for
both
having us.
producers on the film. Lauren, you're also executive producer. Tell me a little bit about your character. I'm gonna say a little bit eccentric. How would you describe Wanda?
I think Wanda's very cranky. Life has handed her a lot, and she's just cranky and decides to take it out on her new neighbor.
How would you describe your character, Brennan?
Will, when you meet him in the film, is sort of apathetic and is really confronted with the grief of the loss of a parent. And sort of from that low point in his life is then met with the feud and the cranky next door neighbor, and all the chaos ensues from there.
The chaos ensues. But let's back up a little bit, because Brennan, I understand this whole story was inspired by a true story, right? Tell me a little bit about the backstory.
Partially, yeah. So it happened to a friend of mine who has a farm, and during COVID ordered a like $400 Sephora package up to the farm, which was, you know, COVID times. We were all sanitizing packages. Like
Do you
that's
remember
kind
that?
of yeah.
Before
yeah.
anything came inside, we were doing anyway. The full wipe down.
The craziness.
Yes.
And so this package got misdelivered to the neighboring property. He then called, tried to sort it out with Canada Post, and they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry." They apologized. Whatever. Went to the neighbors. The neighbors lied. Then the next day, the package showed up on his front porch. All the skincare opened, like right, and then COVID, the germs. That's all part of it. But anyways, that nugget of a missing package.
That's where
is
it all
really
started, and
yeah,
it grew
then-
from there.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a bad neighbor personally?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
We've all had bad neighbors. But I think what's really fun about this, this movie was a tremendous experience because we needed to create something and we wanted to work with our friends. And we just sort of decided independent
Congrats, Wanda, I get it.
Canadian film is really important, and let's go try to do this ourselves.
And you two have been friends for a
Yes.
period of time.
Yes.
Tell us about how the two of you came together for this film specifically.
Well, I was going through, I had a family issue, tremendous grief, terrible thing, and I was very down from it and sort of healing, and Brennan said to me, "You just need to create. We need to do something. We need to get you out there." And it was a hard time to do because the business was going through a real flux with the Hollywood strike and, whatever. So we just decided to try to do this. And so we had a crew of 7 and one big light and wrote this movie to star our friends in a location that we had available. And we did everything from making the props and wardrobe, and we're so proud of it because now it's coming out in theaters across the country, and we really want people to, especially in the times right now and what's going on in our country, in the United States and whatnot, let's make Canadian film.
And support our Canadian filmmakers.
And,
absolutely, 100%.
And go out to the theater and see this, and you'll have fun for 90 minutes. And I'm bored by the Marvel superhero movies or the remake
Remake
again
after
of
remake of the
something
same.
else.
Right, this is an original.
This is
complete-
just an original little story, and it's character-driven, and you'll laugh
that.
and have a good time.
Well, and also you mentioned location. This was shot near Owen Sound on a 100-acre farm. Tell me about what that experience was like.
We all lived there.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
it's
sort
so
of like
fun.
film camp, honestly. We all
Yeah.
lived on the property, and like Lauren said, we just wore millions of different hats, steaming wardrobe until all hours of the night, running our dialogue, filming all day, eating all our meals together. It
Yeah,
was just
stay
like,
and read the credits at the end of the movie.
Oh.
It's a laugh in itself.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Lauren and Brennan, thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you so
you.
much.
I want to let our viewers know Loathe Thy Neighbor. It is in theaters.
Summer calendars filled up fast, and that usually means more spending. Up next, we talk about getting our budgets back on track for fall.
The Ontario government is planning to transfer a large area of Wasaga Beach out of a provincial park. This proposal aims to amend the Provincial Parks and Conservation Reserves Act to allow the removal of 60 hectares of protected land. Officials say this move will help with the revitalization effort, but critics worry that it could set a precedent for future provincial park transfers. Tim Gray is the Executive Director of Environmental Defence, and he's joining us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So walk us through what the plan is right now.
Yeah, there's two parts to this, as you alluded to. One is to remove about 60 hectares of the beachfront in Wasaga Beach. So this is the dunes, the ecologically sensitive area, endangered species habitat, and the most visited park in Ontario. So that's part one. The other is to actually amend the act itself, which protects all provincial parks. This is unnecessary to remove the land from Wasaga because there is a process outlined in the act now. So we're very concerned that the intention is to make it easier to remove lands from all provincial parks and be able to do it in secret by cabinet or by the minister. So there's two aspects of this. One, the direct impacts on Wasaga, and secondly, the impact that's possible for all the rest of the parks in the province.
And just to be clear, when we say remove from sort of provincial park protection, it's being handed off to the town?
It is, and this is being done for a tourism development scheme that the town has been pursuing with a major developer. We have no opposition to the idea of revitalizing tourism infrastructure in Wasaga Beach, but it should not occur on the park. There is land owned by the town, there's private land that can be acquired. There's no need for these ecologically sensitive areas to be handed over to this tourism development project.
Because what are your biggest concerns with this removal?
Yeah, of course, it's the precedent and the fact that parks are meant to be protected for the people of Ontario forever. They have an ecological integrity mandate. But specifically here, these dunes along the shore of Georgian Bay are a barrier to storms, so they help protect the town. They have a species called the piping plover, which is a rare shorebird that's very endangered, which came back to Canada after being extirpated because of good management of beaches. It also has rare coastal dune habitat vegetation, which is only found around the Great Lakes and along the Atlantic Ocean. So very rare habitats, very sensitive, and the provincial parks have a mandate to protect these areas.
What is the town saying about what they plan to do?
The town is saying that they will continue to protect the beach, but it's interesting because in the past they have opposed the type of management that protects these values. And in addition, if they wanted to have these areas remain protected, then they could stay in the park where they have professional people with a legal mandate to continue to protect them. Interestingly, the town itself originally requested that these lands be put into the provincial park because of impacts on them and the inability to control use of the beaches in a way that the town saw fit. So it's interesting that now they want to reverse this.
Yeah, so take us back a little bit, because decades ago, was this land not taken away from people who owned it?
Actually, decades ago, back to the 1950s, the town actually requested the provincial government make these areas provincial parks. So there's a long history here of risk of overuse, risk of damage to these lands. Eventually, they became provincial parklands, and they should stay that way.
Instead of amending the act, what alternatives could the Ford government take, in your opinion?
In the circumstances of wanting to remove land from a provincial park, the existing act says that the minister must bring a report about the impacts of such a change to the legislature and have all MPPs vote on it. This ensures some level of transparency, an evaluation of the impacts, et cetera. So our concern is they're planning on changing that so they no longer have to do that and reducing the transparency, reducing accountability to the people of Ontario, and therefore threatening other parks like Algonquin, Killarney, Quetico, other high-value parks where developers would love to get their hands on the properties.
Tim Gray, Executive Director of Environment Defense, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Hey, Canada, how you doing? How's your summer been? I think we can all agree that we're trying to make the most of it, especially with the few fleeting months of warm weather that we get. But all of this can come with a lot more activities, and that goes with more spending, too. So before your bank account becomes too overwhelmed, or even if it already is, certified financial planner Martha Adams is here to help us recover and get our finances back on track for fall. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you, too. And this is a great segment. I think we're all feeling a little, financially overwhelmed at the end of summer. But let's dive in a little bit more to the emotional impact that your finances being stretched over the summer can have. Like, help us unpack that a bit.
So when it comes to our finances over the summer, we're often focused on what we have paid, but the real cost comes in how we feel. So let's start to understand that a little bit more because, there are a lot of expenditures that we have as we try and make summers memorable, whether that's camps for kids, last minute vacations, even renovations in our backyard or staycations. And then there are those summer get-togethers that we said yes to because we feel that we should. And then we come to this stage where, we look back at our expenditures and feel, guilt and, kind of judgment on ourselves. Yet, we head into September without the opportunity to review that or pause to reflect. And September is one of the busiest and costliest months. And so we go in with financial fatigue, which really can hinder our financial confidence moving forward.
Yeah, and that fatigue and that a little bit of guilt can be overwhelming. So how can we reflect back on our summer finances and, do so in a productive way, but without being too hard on ourselves about it, that reflection?
Yeah, that's a really great point because we want to start by prioritizing the way that we feel and then bridge that to our financial action. So we can do that in a few simple steps. So the first thing is to pause with compassion. This is where we want to ask, how do I feel about my summer expenditures? And here, not with a sense of judgment, but instead understanding. And then from there, we want to reflect for additional clarity. So, looking back at summer expenditures, what did you really enjoy? What added value? And what maybe felt like it was more guilt and obligation? And now with that understanding, you can move forward. So you can reset your path forward and say, what are your priorities heading into the fall? Because now you can move into the fall with purpose instead of a feeling of panic.
And what's the best way to kind of affect that reset and kind of stop and say, hey, let's kind of get our mind back on this and reset our finances? What are the best ways to do that?
So overall, it really is about taking small, simple steps because that's going to really help your financial confidence moving forward. And it's sustainable as well. So the first thing to do is to review maybe your bank balances or credit card statements and see really, kind of flag those high value purchases. Again, not from a sense of judgment, but, awareness and insight. And then start to create a rebalance plan moving forward. And choose, as you're creating that rebalance plan, choose a focus category. So maybe that is reducing debt or increasing your investments, topping those back up. And then that rebalance plan is going to help you to actually achieve those goals. So maybe you are, pausing certain expenses so that you can create that focus that you've chosen for yourself.
It's great advice. I got to tell you, you had me at small, simple steps.
Yeah,
I like that. I like
yeah.
breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces. You mentioned this earlier, but fall can also be a really expensive time.
It is.
For parents, it's back to school season, and we still have that nice weather, so a lot of us still trying to make the most of it.
Yeah.
So as we move deeper into fall, what can we do to make sure our finances stay on track?
So here's something really effective to do. First is to anticipate those known costs. So you mentioned back to school. So if there are expenses that a household has there for kids, start to plan for that in advance, and then automate wherever possible. So, if you're focused on topping up those investments, decreasing that debt, then automate those transactions to make sure you are achieving that goal.
Yep.
And finally, and what I would say is most important, when it comes to your financial well-being, work with and through your emotions instead of the idea of suppressing them, because that guilt and judgment really does hold us back, but awareness and understanding is what helps us move forward. Keep our foot on the gas for our financial confidence.
Yeah, face it so you can deal with it.
Exactly, exactly.
Martha Adams, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for the advice.
Next week on Your Morning, an important conversation about the proper etiquette around service dogs and their handlers. Welcome back to the weekend edition of Your Morning. Here's what's coming up in the next half hour.
The Jambo Brothers showed off their acrobatic skills right in our parking lot. You want to stick around to see this.
We're also going to look at the factors and trends behind a growing housing crisis in Halifax.
But first, Jennifer Jones on her life as a rock star.
All right, it's time to peel the corner guard and hurry hard into this next interview because, my friends, we're honored that we have curling royalty here in our Your Morning studio this morning. Jennifer Jones is a bona fide rock star, if you will, having earned basically every accolade there is in curling. Two-time Olympian, including being a gold medalist, 6 national titles, 2 world championships, 17 Grand Slam victories. The list goes on. She's also a lawyer and an author. We're really honored to be joined by her to talk about her new memoir, Rockstar: My Life on and Off the Ice. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Oh, I love curling. I was telling you right before we rolled, I'm terrible at it, but I've been watching you for years, and I want to get into the stories in the book. And you go from starting off as a kid curling in Winnipeg to all of your incredible victories and then becoming a lawyer, a mom, everything in life. I imagine that for an elite athlete, when you're in the throes of competition, looking back and focusing on the past can be a bit of a double-edged sword. But obviously for writing a memoir, it's key. So what was it like for you to go back and revisit your life and your curling career so far?
I think it was super therapeutic. I did it right after I retired, and I was a little bit sad after I retired giving up curling, so I was able to go back and relive those memories. I would ask my teammates who had better memories than me, just some of the stories and the things, and it just allowed me to realize in the moment you don't think about records you set, or you don't think about the championships you won or the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations. You're just in it.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to go back and go over it and realize, wow, there was a lot there. I mean, I had a really long career, and it changed my life.
And I imagine folks look at you and, see you, and because of all of your accomplishments in curling, but also in life and all the success you've had, they would look at you and they'd say, oh, confidence personified. But you write in the book how you've struggled with confidence, or you used to a little bit, and that it was your sports psychologist, Cal, you talk about him in the book, who gave you a mantra that kind of helped you cope with this. Can you tell us what that mantra is and why it worked so well for you?
Yeah, he would say, why not you? And for me, I always used to say, why me? Why would something good happen to me? I'm just Jennifer, like I'm nothing special. And he's like, but why not you? Why not any one of us? If you set your mind to do something, you can do anything. And confidence is something that I've struggled with forever. I just think I'm just Jen from Winnipeg who loved curling, and Cal gave me the ability to really think that anything was possible, to dream big, but to also just put everything you have into something, and if it doesn't happen, you'll have no regrets because you really tried to put everything into it. So I do that with my daughters. I'm like, why not you? Why can't you achieve greatness? And they go out there in their gymnastics, and I see their nerves calm, and they're doing these things that I could never do, and And I just, I think it's really allowed us as a family to have a different perspective and really just try to dream big.
How does that make you feel when they channel that mantra into their own personal successes?
I'm blown away by it.
Yeah?
You know, I just look and they don't look nervous.
Yeah.
And that's just this special quality that it's really hard to have. They're not scared to lose. They're not scared to miss or make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that's come from watching curling, us talking about being in those big spotlight moments and just really trying to soak it all up and enjoy life. And I know as a mom, all I want is for our kids to be happy and chase their dreams, and I can see them doing it. And I really do. I think a lot of it was from watching me and my husband Brent compete.
Yeah. You mentioned the spotlight in that last answer, and in the book you also talk about your sometimes uneasy relationship with the media, and you talk about kind of getting through that as well, how your comfort zone is not being in a media scrum. I don't think it's anybody's comfort zone, but you said you struggled with that at times. How'd you get through those tougher times?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge for me. You know, I curled because I love to curl, and then all of a sudden you're in this scrum with all these cameras looking at you and trying to ask all these very personal questions and just all of a sudden putting your life out there. I think for me, it took a long time. You go through where you're the media darling, and then all of a sudden you might do something that's controversial, and then there's all this scrutiny, and that was very challenging for me. But then I think through that, it really allowed me to see what was important to me. And you surround yourself with people who care about you, people who lift you up, people who support you, and you become a lot more secure in who you are. And once I did that, then I was able to become a lot more vulnerable because I didn't care as much what people thought, and I kind of changed that relationship.
Yeah, it's great. I want to ask you about, you know, they say it's like the curling shot heard around the world. 2005 Tournament of Hearts. Many analysts call it the best ever shot in curling. I think we might have a bit of footage of it. I rewatched the whole thing this morning with sound and with the celebration after it. It is a remarkable shot, and you say that folks still ask you about it. Why do you think that in particular? You've had this long, august career, but why does that moment stick with folks so much?
I think it's talked about all the time. It's always on the, you know, the greatest shot to win a curling game of all time. So it's in the media, but it was just a big emotional moment, and it was really what kickstarted our career. It was my first championship, and it was really the beginning of our Jennifer Jones teams, and through the years, our first win, and we celebrated in a way that hadn't been seen. Like, we were just jumping around like crazy people, and so. You know, the whole chapter in the book is dedicated to the shot, how I was feeling, what I was thinking, and because it's just such a big moment in curling history.
It's an incredible moment, and in history writ large, too. I got to wrap it up, but really quick, in the book you reference smelling the ice. I like to smell things, old comic books, drum heads. I'm a drummer. I do that as well. And you talk about in the Beijing Olympics going back to the ice with your team and smelling the ice. Why do you like to do that, and what does curling ice smell like?
I think curling for me, you know, walking in was where I felt comfortable when you're a kid. That smell when you walk in, it's like walking into an arena, just that smell of the ice. And I've always associated it with calm and joy and happiness. So it just smells like the most beautiful smell in the world to me.
Yeah, and tied to memory, right?
Yeah.
And so tied to memory.
Yeah.
Jennifer Jones, thank you for being here. Rockstar is her new memoir. It is, as of last night, a #1 bestseller as well. So big congratulations to you on that.
Coming up, from Nairobi to our parking lot, the high-flying Jambo Brothers show off their skills. Okay, welcome back. Maybe you are getting ready for your morning workout. Perhaps here's a little inspo for you. Known for their human pyramids and acrobatic skills, the Jambo Brothers are a group of performers from Nairobi, Kenya, based right here in Toronto. They perform across the country and around the world and are joining us this morning outside. We've got John, Edwin, Kevin, Daniel, and Samuel. Welcome, you guys.
Yeah.
Welcome to your morning. Edwin, listen, you guys grew up together. How did you know that acrobatics was something that you wanted to do, and when did you know you were good at it?
Well, this thing we started from way back when we were childhood friends. I mean, this team here, we grew up together in the same neighborhood. We know each other, our families. We are actually like brothers from different mothers.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And then did you just start doing like tricks together? Is that how you learned this?
Coming up from the same neighborhood, it's a childhood thing, and we all had the same passions. And, you know, growing up together in the same locality and training in the same field in the village, that is where we met, and you know our interests met, and we just became friends.
We got a little taste of what you guys can do right before the break, and there's a lot of trust that goes into exercises like this. So how do you build that? Like, have you ever had a moment where someone goes to fall and the other one dives in to catch them?
Obviously, I mean, it's a sport. It's something that requires a lot of trust. And, you know, we are friends, and that trust, me trusting him, I have no fear.
Oh.
That trust builds the fear. I mean, that brotherhood brings the bond together.
Do you guys have a favorite act that you like to perform?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Can you show me?
Sure.
Okay, listen, give me the microphones. We're gonna do this and have some fun. We ready? Cue up some music. You guys, that is incredible, unbelievable. That, like, my mind is blown. That's so awesome. I'm gonna make you talk some more, Edwin, if you don't mind, if you can catch your breath.
It's okay, it's okay.
So listen, people in the Toronto area can catch you guys doing your thing. You're gonna be at the Toronto Busker Fest. It starts today. Is this the act, or is it longer? Is there more that people will see?
Well, the show is longer.
Yeah.
You have to expect crazy stunts, big moves, and big smiles. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
cannot get over the fact that you don't have any sort of mats. You didn't have any protection here underneath you guys.
Yeah.
You look fearless out there.
I mean, the trust that I told you about.
That's
Trust.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is this every day for you guys? Do you have like regular day jobs that you go back to, or are you guys busking all the time?
We do regular day jobs, and this is also our passion. And, you know, we incorporate that in our lives.
I love that. I cannot imagine being your coworker and being like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? They're like, having a barbecue. You're like, what are you doing? Like, oh, just flipping upside down. Congratulations, you guys. That was awesome. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And a reminder, the Toronto Busker Fest starts today and runs until Monday. Make sure you check out this act. You do not want to miss it.
Coming up Monday on Your Morning, exploring the world behind Rise of the Raven, part of this year's TIFF lineup. Homelessness is increasing at an alarming rate in the city of Halifax. I'm going to show you some data now. This recent data collected by the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia shows the number of people experiencing homelessness in the city nearly doubled between 2022 and 2024. For a closer look at this crisis, I'm joined by Michael Kaplan, Executive Director of the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsay.
How do we reach this point where the number of people experiencing homelessness has nearly doubled in those 2 years?
In the last couple of years, I think we've seen an acceleration of the people experiencing homelessness due to some systemic issues. I think, the housing crisis affects people with lower incomes more pronounced. And I think the symptoms of the ongoing housing crisis, which has roots back in the 90s, right? We need to remember the federal government was the biggest engine of building affordable housing in our country up until the 90s. All stripes of political party up until that point have had power either through a power sharing arrangement or others. And they just haven't made that level of investment at a federal level. They've delegated that authority to municipalities and provinces. But we still haven't seen the type of investment in affordable housing. So homelessness is really a symptom of the broader housing crisis that many Canadians are facing when it comes to affordability. And so these numbers they recognize, those of us that are most vulnerable are having a much, much harder time and are unfortunately falling through the social safety net that we all would hope to depend on if we were in a similar place.
What are some of the other concerning trends that are highlighted in this report?
Yeah, so, one is how much more it has increased in Halifax. So between the two counts in 2022 and 2024, we've seen an increase of 93% in Halifax, whereas the national average is around 79%. That's significant, I think, for a small center like Halifax, and I think it's impacting us substantially. We've also seen people have experienced homelessness longer. So in 2022, less than a quarter of the people had experienced chronic homelessness, whereas now we're looking at about 3 of every 4 of the people that are experiencing homelessness are in a chronic state. We want homelessness to be rare, brief, and non-recurring. But what we're seeing is it's becoming more common, it's taking longer, and those that are experiencing it are having a harder time keeping housing once they get it. We've also seen Indigenous and African Nova Scotians represented at both 16 and 19% of the population, or the people we talk to, when they're less than 4 and 7% of our population here in HRM. So that's also significant.
And the report also found most people experiencing homelessness are men. In fact, 65% of respondents were men, most between the ages, of 30 and 49. What do you make of this?
I think, the system is designed to help the most vulnerable. And I think there's a lot of resources and a lot of organizations and places that focus on women, children, people who are non-binary. There's some organizations that focus around seniors. Unfortunately, if you are a white man in Canada and you experience homelessness, there's not a unique organization for you. So you're left with the bigger organizations who are also overwhelmed, also serving kind of the more diverse or the more racialized or folks that need have a higher priority in the sense of where resources go. So the indication of men is really an indication of single men who fall into poverty or have an income issue, lose their job, lose their housing, are more likely to fall into homelessness as well, because there's less supports there than there would be for women, children, individuals who come from Indigenous or African Nova Scotian communities as well.
And what about people, sleeping in rough or unsafe settings? What did we learn?
So in Nova Scotia, we saw about the same amount of people between the two counts experiencing unsheltered homelessness, or as you described it as sleeping rough. And I think, that's a testament to there is things that are being done, right? In Nova Scotia, we've seen the provincial government and the municipality here in Halifax make investments on, what we might call warehousing, not housing, indoor options for folks, but it's still not housing, right? A shelter isn't housing. Hotel rooms or motel rooms that were used during COVID and some persist in some instances, that's not housing, right? That doesn't end the instance of homelessness. It's still a precarious housing situation. And we've also seen governments in our region make significant investment in housing. So we're not saying nothing's been done. It's just we still haven't done enough, right? So we're advocating for more.
Yeah, so what more needs to be done? What are the long-term solutions here, Michael?
Yeah, the long-term solution is continued investment in social housing. So our organization, AHANS, aside from doing the work around trying to reduce homelessness in our community, is also an organization that builds, maintains and manages a portfolio of affordable housing. And there's a number of organizations in Atlantic Canada that do that work. So we really want to advocate both to the federal, provincial, and municipal governments to invest in more affordable housing. In Canada, we're well below the OECD average of 7% of what we call community housing, or housing that's not in the hands of the private sector or the hands of government. It's in the hands of the community, nonprofits, co-ops, and other charities. So we would advocate to get Canada up to that, at least that 7% OECD average. But really beyond that, if 20% of our housing stock, you look at jurisdictions in Europe where 20% of the housing stock is owned and operated by the community, the homelessness numbers are also much lower, because there's housing that is meant to help those that are most vulnerable, and it's a complete community for those folks. So that's what we would really advocate is for federal, municipal, and provincial investment to bring us up to at least the OECD average of 7%. In Nova Scotia, we're less than 3%. In other jurisdictions in Canada, it could be higher and lower, but we're still much behind our peers around the world. And so Canadians really need to see more of that type of housing if we're really going to end
long-term solution.
Exactly.
Well, Michael Kaplan, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate your thoughts on this.
Great to chat with you.
That's all for us on today's Your Morning Weekend. Don't forget, scan the QR codes. You can receive Your Morning, our newsletter, and listen to more great conversations on Your Morning, the podcast.
We have another awesome week coming up on Monday. If you've been thinking about estate planning, fall may be a good time to get started.
On Tuesday, a guide of what to do and what not to do around service dogs.
And on Wednesday, a closer look at addiction to our smart screens and what you and your family can do about it.
On Thursday, debunking some of the sleep trends going around on social media.
And Friday, find out what the term time confetti means and why it may be stealing your focus.
Tried to steal my line
I
there.
did. I really did.
Sounds like a great week ahead. We'll see you on Monday.